Alright, so we are now live on Usapang Musiko Season 2. This is our 10th episode. How are you guys doing? So, welcome back to our podcast. I hope you're enjoying the content that I'm pushing out. This is ryanmonakil, and welcome back to another episode. Basically, this episode we will talk about skills and gear. Uh, it's like it's gonna be like a follow up video or a more in depth take on the video I released last Monday, where I talked about when you need to upgrade your instrument, or do you need maintenance, and when do you need to upgrade your skills. So basically, we'll be talking about those things. No? Of course, we all need decent gear to start off, no? It's an important part of being a musician is to have gear that's adequate for you and that is usable, no? You can't just be playing on an old instrument that's not maintained well and expect to get great results, of course. You have to have a decent instrument, no? But if you're starting out, do you really need that hyper expensive instrument, especially for acoustic instruments or those instruments that don't have effects, no, per se, like violin or an acoustic guitar, no? These things, you can start with a fairly cheap instrument and upgrade as the need arises. Diba? We always talk about those things, no? Because starting out at a higher end instrument can be a good and a bad thing. No? First things first, especially the price. If something is more expensive, people tend to do better sometimes, no, because they think, okay, my expenses should be worth it, so I put more effort into it, do better in a way, no, and of course, if it's properly set up, you're setting up yourself for a faster improvement or better pacing when it comes to leveling up your skill. Because if it's well set up, it's playable, you can play better starting out, right? But of course, if you can only buy a cheap instrument or you just want to test the waters per se, it's totally fine to buy a cheaper instrument as long as it's playable. So, for me personally, I recommend instruments for my students in whatever amount of money it may cost them, as long as they can play with it, they can play on it without any problem. So the bridge is cut, especially for violins. You know? The nut is adequate. The height of the strings are good. The distances between the strings are good. The bow is not warped in any shape or form. And the bow is straight. So those things are what I check, not the price of your instrument, because again, skills will matter more, especially on these types of instruments wherein there's no effects nga. There's nothing to cover your sound except that way you play your instrument. So you really need to invest in skills. And the more that you get into higher level instruments, the more that you realize that, okay, there are things that I lack. Because there's this relationship between you and your instrument that the familiarity of how you touch your instrument is going to be different from something that is you haven't used yet, no? So if you're starting out with a cheap instrument and you have to progress to a more expensive, there is also another break-in period and feeling out period that you need to go through. So you still need to get used to your instrument. And it's not something that, okay, I'll change in a snap, it's already there, no? You have to still invest time and effort into it. Okay. But of course, there will always come a time that an upgrade is necessary. Especially if you have lessons your teacher would know when you need to upgrade to another one, to a better instrument or a better gear. For example, you need sometimes kasi for violinists, you don't really need to upgrade your violin every now and then. Maybe you just need to upgrade your bow or have your bow repaired or something like that. And it's still part of your instrument. It's just incremental upgrades. Sometimes you need to upgrade your pegs or your bridge, and it will add something to it. But when we talk about upgrades for these types of things, think about it as like as a car. Okay, you can upgrade the exhaust, you can upgrade the intake, you can upgrade a lot of things, but it will max out eventually when you try to upgrade increments. For example, for your violin, if you want to try new strings, more expensive strings, okay, that's good. And then you try more expensive bridge, more expensive fittings, like more expensive pegs or something like that. Of course, it will add value. It will make the sound a bit better, but it can only do so much. No? I have friends who upgrade their tailpiece. Sometimes their tailpiece is much more expensive than their violin, and it can only do so much. No? So that's the time where you need to upgrade the whole instrument. No, it's like the car nga. The engine can only do so much for your car, and the same thing. If the body of your instrument or the quality of the materials that your instrument has already reached its peak with your playing, you need to upgrade to another one. Okay, so that's the time you upgrade. Now, I think it's gonna be different from those with effects or electric instruments because the sound doesn't necessarily come from the player. So there's sort of I don't want to say cheating, or let's just call it masking of the lack of skill. So that's why a lot of people tend to jump into an electric violin because it's easier to play. No, the sound comes from something that is electric and mechanical in a way. No, it's not about the nuances that you can do in the normal violin. No, there are a lot of things that will not directly reflect into your playing an electric instrument. But of course, if you have the skills on the normal acoustic violin, you can play your electric violin a bit better. Huh? So, of course, there's pros and cons with these things. But we should always try to understand that there's a middle ground between upgrading your instrument or the gear and upgrading your skills, okay? And I think it's always better to upgrade your skills first before upgrading your instrument. Okay, when I started out, I was using an antique 3/4 violin when I was 6 years old. It was too big for me, so my parents had to get a smaller one. So I think it's a 1/4. I'm not really sure. So I'm using those things. And my teacher then told me that they don't need to buy pretty expensive instrument because violins have sizes. And as you grow older, you change sizes. So I've been changing until I reached 4th grade. I was using, I think it was a 2,000 peso violin for full size. Yeah, I'm a big guy, so I am using a full size violin at the age of, I think, 10, 11. So grade 4. And then that's the time when my teacher thought that, okay, my instrument is not giving me what I need, no? So that's the time I changed an instrument into a pretty decent one. And that's the instrument I've been using until I was in second year college. So from 4th grade to second year college, we had a nice run, no, with that instrument. But I also had to change because my teacher then told me that I need a new instrument because that instrument is not sufficient enough for me again. So I had to change. So I changed to another, and also I broke that instrument. I think the neck was uh, broken, so I had to buy a new one. So I bought a new one, and then that's what I've been using. I bought two actually, and I've been using one for I think 3 years in college. So after I finished graduation, I thought to myself that I think I need another one, no, because I can feel it, I can hear it that I'm maxing out my instruments. It's like when you're giving effort, it doesn't respond to you anymore. So I upgraded to another instrument. So that's how I did it. But it's not just purely me saying that okay, I need a new one. It's always when somebody hears me and I agree to them, no. So feedback from people I trust, no, not just feedback from random people that don't know how I play, don't know me, no. I get feedback from my teachers, from my mentors, from my friends. So that's the time that I change instruments. Now, upon changing instruments, I realized that I don't really need to be changing my violin too often. Sometimes the problem is not with the violin because sometimes it's just the bow. So that's the time I invested in a bow, a decent one. So I've been using that bow, and I think it has greatly affect my playing. It's been helping me a lot. It makes my playing a bit clearer than the way I was playing before. So with violin kasi, there's a lot of upgrades, unlike a guitar or unlike a keyboard that you just need one, no? Here you have two things to consider: your bow and your violin. Now, the bow is something you need to reconsider every time because your bow acts more. It's the one that's making the sound onto your instrument, no? How you hold the bow. We talked about holding the bow properly and using your bow properly, and of course you need to use a decent bow, a good bow that will help enhance your playing. So that's what I did, and I'm trying out other bows, and hopefully I get another upgrade soon, no? So those things are important, no? Of course, but if you look at it this way, I'm not upgrading because I just want to upgrade. No. I'm upgrading because I need to upgrade. It's something different if you just want to upgrade but you haven't reached that level yet. It's the same thing as playing an RPG. No? You grind out the levels, but the skills aren't maxed out. So what happens is you can wear that armor already, but you can defeat the enemy at a higher level. So it's the same thing. No? You change your instrument, but what happens is it ends up that you're having a harder time playing with that instrument. Sometimes this happens to a lot of students is that okay, they're playing this new violin and then they feel that it's too overpowering for them. No, the sound that comes out is a bit too harsh. No, sometimes people feel this that okay, parang I think I need earplugs because it's too much for me, which just means that you're not ready for that instrument yet. No, because you can't control it. You have to be able to control to understand the ins and out of the violin, of the instrument that you're using, for you to be able to really understand it and have full control over it. Diba? And that's important because your instrument is an extension of your body. And as an extension of your body, your mind should be the one controlling it, not the other way around. It's not the instrument who will decide what type of sound it wants to play or what type of sound it wants to produce. It is on you on what type of sound you want it to produce. So it's a matter of mind over matter. And again, if you don't invest in your skills, if you just buy and buy and buy and buy new stuff, but you never ask anyone, What do I need to improve? What do I need to do to be better at my craft? No? If you don't have people you can trust to ask these questions, then it's gonna be hard for you to level up, to be able to play certain pieces, certain things, no? But of course, this is all in your discretion. This is just an advice coming from someone who has seen a lot of people do these mistakes. Not really mistakes, but more of poor choices and bad decisions, no? Because, of course, you do what you want to do with your money because it's yours. But what if you can play on a 10,000 peso violin and make it sound like a 50,000 peso violin? Instead of having people have 50,000 peso instruments sound like 10,000 peso instruments, diba? It's better for you to sound good than your instrument to sound bad. So you have these choices. So I think there's an example of like someone was playing on a cheap instrument and then it was like, oh, that instrument sounds nice. But they didn't realize that that instrument sounded nice because the one playing it sounded good. It's not because the violin is well made. I mean, of course it's well made, but the sound will really, really, really depend on the player. You know? Again, the anecdote of my teacher before, he was in a performance. I think he forgot. I'm not sure if he forgot his instrument or he was just invited to play, and there was like a cheapo violin laying around the hall. He used that instrument to play, and everyone thought, oh, that was a nice violin. But no, diba? We have this saying na in Filipino, nasa Indian yun, wala sa pana. No? It's with the player, not with the instrument. I've also encountered these things, no? I had a performance before. Like, I didn't bring my violin to school because I didn't have orchestra class or lessons during that day. So I went to school, had lessons, classes. And then they asked me, oh, are you free today? Yeah, but the problem is, I don't have an instrument. So we rummaged around the school, found an old instrument that has been there, lying there for like 3 years now. No one was claiming it, so I told them, okay, let's use that. And I managed to play. No, we play a string quartet for an occasion. I forgot the occasion, but yeah, I used that instrument, which is lying around. I don't know how much it costs, or how expensive or cheap it might be, but I've been able to play it, and they won't notice the difference because I know what I'm doing. No, that's the difference. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just playing around, no, doing your bowing, and you're not aware of the instrument that you're using, it's gonna be hard for you. And it takes time. No, it's not just okay. You had lessons today. You had lessons last week, so you had 2 hours of lesson for 2 weeks, and you expect that okay, I should be better now. No, because it needs to be digested. It needs to be ingested and ingrained into your system. How you be able to play in a certain level. So it's really a juggling of two things. How much you're willing to spend, no? And how much you're willing to invest in yourself. So it's not just a material investment. The violin is not just a material investment. You need to invest your time, your skills, your effort, and money as well, no? Because to get teachers, decent teachers, you need decent what do you call this? rates, for example, for lack of better term. You need to pay their rates because that's you're not just paying for their time, you're paying for the experience, you're paying for their insights, you're paying for the experience and the knowledge that they have amassed. So it's very, very important that you understand those things when you're having lessons. No, it's not just about okay, you show your teacher I have a 50,000 peso violin but I don't know how to use it. How can I play? Or, diba? So you have to understand that sometimes you have to halt that upgrade, work with what you have, and try to make it work with lessons. No, I had students that have these cheap instruments. No, they were telling me, okay, sir, I think I need to upgrade. And I told them, okay, let's have lessons first. No, and when they realize that they don't need an upgrade, they just need an upgrade on their skills, on themselves, not on the instruments. Because again, the instrument will only work if you know how to use it. And I guess that will end our podcast today. Please do stay safe and dry, everyone. This podcast will be available on Friday on Anchor.fm. Usapang Musiko Season 2 is brought to you by Anchor.fm. Reach out to my socials, links down below in the description box. And please do support my YouTube channel. We're almost at 900 subscribers. And also, please do continue supporting Usapang Musiko Season 2. This is Ryan Monakil, and I'll see you on the next one.